Hi, my name's Hannah and welcome to this beginner series. In this video, we're going to be breaking down the warrior poses. So these are standing poses that we use quite generally in lots of physical yoga practices. In the more dynamic styles that we see, they're often used. So there's warrior 1, warrior 2 and warrior 3. And we'll be going through those together in this video. We'll be breaking it all down so that you feel as confident as you can in your own body and your own practice. Ready to move forward. So we're going to start at the top of the mat, and we're actually going to begin with warrior 3. So this one is a balancing pose, and for this one you might need some blocks, so I would have them to hand just in case. If you're quite confident with balancing on one leg, you might not need them, but they're always good to have to hand just in case, I think. So for this one, we're going to grab our blocks. We're just going to place them to the top of the mat, about hip width apart, or shoulder width apart really. And these are going to be support for the hands. We're going to start standing though, and we're going to use our right leg as the standing leg for this first side. So let's come onto the ball of our left foot so that we're shifting some weight over to the right side. Whenever we come into a balance, we want to make sure that we've got a focus point just in front of us. So a little spot on the ground just in front of you that's non-moving that you can keep your gaze on. In yoga we call this our drishti, so our focus point. But this is going to help us to balance. So we're grounding down through that right foot, and then we're going to start to lift our left leg up towards the sky. From here, we'll begin to lengthen our left leg out behind us. And the shape that we're trying to create in warrior 3 is kind of like a capital T shape. So there's a line from the crown of the head and down the body and out through that left foot. And there's also a line from our right hip down to the sole of the right foot. So that's the kind of shape that we're creating. It can be quite challenging to balance, especially if it's not something that we do often. It requires strength in the calf and the ankle, so that's the area that we're working. And so you might find that as you come into the pose, actually it's quite beneficial to pop the hands down onto blocks. Of course, if you haven't got blocks, you could use books. Just stack them up to a similar height, and that will give you the same effect. If you are quite confident in balancing, then you could lift the hands away, maybe bring them together at heart center, and that might feel quite comfortable. I quite like to have my hands on my hips here, but if you wanted to really challenge yourself in this pose, then we're going to reach the arms out in front of us, bicep by ears. I don't often see people doing that because it is quite challenging to do. But yeah, so the arms can reach out in front. One of the things I see quite often in this pose is the hips. So the hips are meant to be square in this shape. So left hip is in line with the right hip. They're pointing down towards the mat. I always think if you think of the hips like headlights, where would they be shining? We want to make sure that they're both shining down towards the mat here, but quite often you'll see, so on this side it'll be the left hip, the hip of the extended leg lifts. We want to try and draw that left hip back down towards the mat. And this is why I quite like having my hands on my hips, because I can kind of feel where they are in space. So we want to draw that left hip down towards the mat so it's in line with the right. Foot can be pointed, it can be flexed, whatever feels better for you. You can have a soft bend in that standing leg as well. Lovely. When you're ready, we'll step back to the top of the mat and we'll swap it over. So left foot stays grounded. Come onto the ball of your right foot, draw that right thigh up and in towards the chest, and then start to lengthen your right leg out behind you. Tip the torso forward. So the aim here is that we're bringing, on this side, our right knee in line with the right hip. We're also trying to bring our shoulders in line with the hips as well. Lovely. We embrace the wobbles in our balances. The main thing to remember is that this is a yoga practice. It's not perfect. We're not aiming for perfection. We're just aiming to move our body in a way that feels good. So don't worry if you wobble a little bit. These poses are meant to be challenging. They're not meant to be easy. Lovely. And then when you're ready, right foot steps forward, back to the top of the mat. Warrior 3. So that's our balancing pose. We're going to come into warrior 2 next, so kind of moving backwards through the numbers. So we'll start with our right leg again. This one is more of kind of like a lunge sort of pose. So we're going to keep our right leg forward, and we're going to step our left foot towards the back of the mat. And we do want quite a wide stance with the legs here. Right toes are going to stay pointing to the top edge of the mat. left toes are going to turn out slightly. So you can have the toes pointing to the long edge of the mat if you want to, or we can turn the toes slightly in if that's more comfortable. But we are going to face the side of the mat now, the long edge. I'm just going to turn around so that you can see. This pose is a strengthening pose, so we're working into strengthening our front leg here. And we'll start from the ground up, so we'll start with the feet. So those right toes are pointing forward, left toes pointing to the long edge. You'll hear quite often teachers cueing that the front heel of the foot should be in line with the back arch of the foot, which is the traditional alignment. However, it doesn't feel right for everyone. It's different for different bodies. But yeah, so you can have the arches lined up with that front heel. If you've got tighter hips, it can feel a little bit more comfortable to have your front heel in line with your back heel instead. But I wouldn't worry too much about that personally. So in this pose, not only are we strengthening, we're opening the hips. So we're opening our front right hip. And to do that, we want to make sure that we're pressing our front knee towards what is the back of the mat. The idea is that when you glance down, you should be able to see your big toe. If you can't see your big toe, it just means that you need to guide that right knee outwards a little bit more. As we do this, we want to think about grounding down through the outer edge of our left foot, and that's going to stop our left knee from rolling in and causing injury. And it also keeps the left leg strong here too. So engages that left leg a little bit more. We're going to sink low into the legs. Think about squeezing the navel in, tucking the tailbone under. We want to think about lengthening up through the spine. We're going to bring the arms to shoulder height here. So our focus point, or our drishti in this pose, is actually forward. It's our middle finger. Nice, and this is essentially the pose. Hands can always come to heart center if that's more comfortable. For most lunging poses, we can also bring the back knee down to the mat. So if we were going to take this variation, we'd come down onto the left knee. We'd have our left foot in line with the back long edge of the mat. We keep our right toes pointing forward. We'll start to bend and sink into that right leg. And it does a very similar thing. It just releases some of the load on that front leg. Again, arms can be at shoulder height or maybe to heart center. Perfect, but that's warrior two. Okay, we'll swap it over. So we're going to place our left leg to the top of the mat now. Right foot steps back. Exactly the same again, we want quite a wide stance with the legs here. We're aiming for that front knee to step directly above the front ankle. And the idea, the aim, is the direction that we're working in. We don't have to be there right now. But the aim is for that front thigh to be parallel with the ground. Bring the arms out to shoulder height. Think about lengthening up through the spine. Lovely. Remember to ground down through the outer edge of the back foot. That's quite an important one. Protects kind of the back knee. Lovely, opening up through that front hip. And then again, we can try the variation with the back knee on the mat. So bringing the right knee to the earth, allowing that right foot to come in line with the back long edge of the mat, and then sinking low into our left leg once more. Fabulous. Just working out kind of what feels best for you. It can change from day to day as well. You might find that some days having both knees lifted feels good, and on others we have to bring the knee down to the mat, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, we'll come out of that one. So that one was warrior two, and then we're going to finish with warrior three, the final warrior. So for this pose, we're going to keep it's another lunge kind of variation of the pose. So we're going to keep our right foot forward, step our left foot to the back of the mat. So similar to warrior two, but this time we're going to stay facing the front of the mat. So we're going to pull our left hip forward so that it's in line and square with our right hip. So those left toes turn in a little bit more than in warrior two. And you might find that you have a slightly shorter stance in this pose. That's okay, that's not to worry. It's quite difficult to square off the hips in this pose, I find, personally, for me anyway. So you might find that it's a little bit more comfortable to widen the legs. So taking the right foot a little further out to the right and the left foot a little further to the left. And that's going to help to pull the left hip forward and square the hips off. Same as warrior two, we're grounding down through the outer edge of the back foot, squeezing the navel in, tucking the tailbone under, and then we're going to reach the arms up to the sky. Fabulous. So the hands can be at heart center in this one as well. They can even be on the hips, really, if that's more comfortable as well for you. Releases some of this strain on the shoulders. Nice. Perfect. Let's step our left foot forward to join our right foot, and we'll swap it straight over. So left foot's at the top of the mat. Right foot steps back. Perfect. So squaring off the hips, exactly the same again. I'm going to take my right foot out a little wider so that my right hip points forward. Again, you want to think about headlights. We want them both to point forward in this variation. Grounding down through the outer edge, reaching the arms up to the sky, squeeze the navel in, sinking low into that front leg. Nice, and just breathe. Lovely. When you're ready, we'll step the right foot forward to meet the left foot back at the top of the mat, completing the warriors. So for our warriors, those are the main kind of poses. But there are some poses that we add on to. So warrior 2, we can reverse and come into a reverse warrior. And warrior 1, we can come into humble warrior. So we'll go through those in this video as well, as they are quite nice variations and they are often used in practices. So let's come back into warrior 2. Start with the right foot forward, left foot back. We're bending into that right knee. I'm going to bring the arms to shoulder height. And we'd come into warrior 2 if we were going to find reverse warrior. So we'll start where we are, and this can be done with the back knee lowered as well. We're actually going to take an inhale, start to reach towards the front of the room. So shifting your weight forward as you reach your right arm forward. Flip the right palm over. As we exhale, take your left hand down to your left leg, reach the right arm up and over. So we're still sinking into that right leg, still a strengthening pose. We still have the hip opening aspect here as well, but we've added in a new element, which is creating length in the right side of the body. So almost like a side stretch. Well, it is a side stretch really. Nice. So this back arm is resting against our back leg, and what I often see is a lot of people putting loads of weight on that back leg, but really we should be able to lift the back arm away and still hold the shape. So there shouldn't be too much pressure, it's just kind of like a guide for us, a little bit of extra support. I also often see people's shoulders up by their ears. Again, we want to try and soften them away, creating space for the neck. And then one of the big ones in our side bends is we want to keep the chest lifted. So when the shoulder drops down, we're no longer really working into the side body. So we want to roll the top shoulder back and lift the heart. Fabulous, and that's our reverse warrior. That one's one of my favorites. But yeah, okay, let's swap the feet over. There we go. Left foot forward, right leg back. Same again, arms to shoulder height. Take an inhale, shifting forward. Flip that left palm over. Exhale, right hand, right leg. The left arm reaches up and over this time. Nice. So really reaching out through those left fingertips to create the length in the side body. Rolling the top shoulder back, lift the chest. Gaze can go up here if it feels good, or it can stay down. I prefer to take my gaze down in this pose. Nice. Lovely. Coming back up to warrior 2, step the back foot forward, and we'll meet back at the top of the mat. Nice. Okay, we're going to finish with humble warrior. So this one we're going to come back into warrior 1. So right foot forward, left foot back, but creating that kind of lunge shape with the back heel lowered, hips square. Rather than reaching the arms up to the sky, instead we're going to sweep the arms behind us, interlace the fingers. We're going to take a breath in to kind of prepare for this pose, and as we do this, we're going to send the fist backwards and down towards the heel of the back foot. So we're drawing the shoulders together, lifting the chest. As we exhale, lower the chest down towards your right thigh, let the arms drop overhead. And you'll feel this working into the shoulders as well as strengthening that right leg. The temptation here is to let your right shoulder rest on top of your right knee. Really what we want to do is bring our right shoulder to the inside of the right knee. You could even start to press your shoulder into the knee and the knee into the shoulder to create a little bit of, just a little bit extra, a little bit more strength to the pose, a little bit of resistance, that's the word I was looking for. Think about pulling that back hip forward still. We still want the hips to be square here. Nice. And again, just breathe into these shapes. Lovely. Start to release the pose. Step the left foot forward to meet your right foot at the top of the mat, and we'll swap it over. Almost there now. So right foot goes back, left foot stays forward. Bending deeply into the front knee, sweep the arms behind you. Again, take that inhale to lift the chest, Then exhale to bow the chest towards your left thigh. Let the arms drop overhead. You want to let the head drop down towards the mat here as well, so relaxing the neck. Running down through the outer edge of that back foot as you pull that back hip forward. Lovely, really nice, well done. Start to lift the chest, step forward. We'll make our way back out of Humble Warrior. Well done, perfect. So that was our warrior poses. We've worked on kind of breaking down the poses so that we feel a little bit more confident in our practice. Thank you for joining me today. Namaste.